My name is Rowan Ellis. I'm 34, the kind of woman people describe as steady. I work as a UX designer in Portland. Rent never late, plants watered on schedule. Life arranged neatly between deadlines and grocery lists. It's the kind of order that makes chaos feel impossible until it happens. That Tuesday night, I called my parents the way I always did. My mom talked about the rain and a new soup recipe. My dad reminded me to check my car tires before winter. Declan, my brother, had been staying with them for a while, between projects, as he called it. The conversation felt normal, maybe even comforting. When Mom said, "Love you, sweetheart," I smiled, set it back, and pressed end. Only, I didn't. Their voices lingered, faint through the speaker. I frowned, lifting the phone closer. Dad's voice came first, flat and tired. Living with her is awful, but we're only staying because of her money. Then Declan laughed an easy, cutting sound that reached straight into the quiet part of me I thought was safe. I didn't move. My hand tightened around the phone until it hurt. I could hear chairs shifting, the scrape of silverware, their conversation continuing as if I weren't there, as if I'd never been anything more than an account number. The tea beside me went cold. The apartment felt smaller, walls closing in around that one sentence. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I just listened until the line finally clicked dead, and the silence afterward was worse than the words. Outside, the rain started again, soft against the windows. I sat there until the sound steadied my breathing. Then I picked up the phone, opened the Notes app, and typed the date. I needed to remember exactly when the world tilted. The smell of bacon reached me before the sound of it. That familiar crackle, the scent of coffee brewing, the soft hum of my mother's voice. Everything was exactly as it should be, or used to be. I walked into the kitchen, barefoot, still in the cardigan I'd slept in. Mom looked up with that practiced warmth. "Morning, sweetheart. I made your favorite crispy, just how you like it." Dad didn't look up. His face was hidden behind the Oregonian, the rustle of pages his only reply. Declan sat at the counter, scrolling on his phone, the glow of the screen reflected in the dark of his coffee. I poured myself a cup and took a seat. My heart kept waiting for someone to flinch, for a glance, a tone, a tremor, some small confession that they knew I'd heard, but nothing came. They chatted about errands, about a neighbor's new car, about a sale at the grocery store. Every word was choreography. Mom set a plate in front of me, eggs perfectly scrambled, bacon laid out in neat lines. She smiled too long, as if afraid I might notice the edges cracking. "You look tired. Honey, rough night." I forced a smile, just couldn't sleep. Declan's thumbs moved faster across his screen. "Same. Been up working." His voice was casual. Too casual. I nodded, pretending not to see the faint twitch in Dad's jaw when I reached for the sugar bowl, his signal that he was still the one uneasy in the room. While they ate, I slid my phone beneath the table, opened the Notes app, and typed quietly. Dad avoids eye contact. Mom overcompensating. Declan pretending nothing happened. Mom's laughter filled the room again, bright and hollow. The sound bounced off the tile, off the windows, off my skin. Everything looked normal. The family I'd built my world around was performing it perfectly. 3 years earlier, Portland had felt kinder. The streets were still damp that spring. Cherry blossoms caught in the wind like soft pink confetti. I'd just left the attorney's office with the envelope that held my grandfather's will and my future. The inheritance wasn't extravagant, but enough to make something steady, something ours. I remember standing outside the Craftsman house near Mount Tabor for the first time, sunlight spilling over its gabled roof and blue shutters. It felt alive, hopeful. I pictured my parents gardening together, Declan fixing his life after the divorce, all of us finally breathing in the same rhythm. When I called them that evening, my mother cried, "You mean we'd all live there? Together." I laughed. "That's the point. No more rent, no more stress. We can take care of each other." She said it was the kindest thing anyone had ever done for her. My father's voice softened in the background. You've always been the practical one. Row. The first months were good. We repainted the kitchen cabinets, planted rosemary by the back fence, and turned Sunday dinners into small celebrations. Declan helped with repairs. Dad grilled on weekends. Mom filled the rooms with her humming. The house pulsed with comfort, like a body with 3 steady heartbeats. But over time, the rhythm shifted. Dad stopped looking for the part-time work he'd promised to keep. Mom began shopping more, calling it little treats. Declan's freelance projects dried up, replaced by late mornings and excuses. The laughter didn't disappear all at once. It just dulled, replaced by a kind of quiet expectation that I'd handle things, that I always did. Bills came to me by default. Groceries, utilities, home repairs, even Declan's credit card balance after a tough month. Each time, I told myself it was temporary. Family helped family. Now, sitting in the same kitchen years later, the memory feels heavier. I'd built them a refuge and stepped inside it like a willing prisoner, locking the door from the inside. The walls still hold their laughter, but I can hear the echo of what it cost me to keep it alive. It started with a single envelope on the kitchen counter, a credit card statement addressed to me, the paper slightly damp from a coffee ring. I almost threw it into the stack of mail without looking, but something about the total caught my eye too high, far beyond what I usually spent. I took it to my room, closed the door, and began to read line by line. The first few charges were familiar: the grocery store, gas, a few online orders. Then came others: a steakhouse downtown I'd never been to, a boutique wine delivery, something labeled consulting services for several $100s. My pulse quickened. I grabbed the next month's bill, then the next. Patterns emerged like bruises under light, the same names repeating, the same amount spaced weeks apart. I opened my laptop, logged into the online banking dashboard, and scrolled back through transactions I hadn't checked in months. My secondary account, the one my parents used for household expenses, was draining slowly, consistently, and very intentionally. The so-called consulting fees led to a name I recognized but didn't want: to Declan Ellis Design, LLC, my brother's company, the one he'd shut down after his divorce. Or so he'd told me. I clicked deeper into the business registry. Active. Updated last quarter. Address this house. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. The air in my chest felt thin. He'd registered a business again using my address, using my money. The payments labeled consulting were transfers from my account to his. I printed everything: receipts, statements, business filings. Each page felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of their signatures might crush me. From the kitchen came laughter, faint and distant. Declan's voice, easy and careless, carrying through the vents. My mother asked about dinner, her tone bright. My father responded, something about expenses, and they all chuckled. I gathered the papers into a folder and slipped it under my desk drawer. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Every number told the same story. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was itemized, dated, and charged directly to me. I waited until after dinner, when the dishes were done and the air smelled faintly of lemon soap and roasted chicken. Mom was at the sink, drying her hands on a towel printed with sunflowers. Her humming filled the kitchen, a melody I'd known since childhood, soft and looping, meant to calm. Hey, Mom, I said lightly, leaning against the counter. I was going through some bills earlier and noticed a few transfers I don't remember making, from the joint account. She glanced at me, startled for a split second before her expression melted into practiced ease. Transfers, she repeated, laughing under her breath. Oh, sweetheart, it's just a little help for your brother's startup. You know we share everything. Her tone was gentle, almost musical. If I hadn't seen the papers myself, I might have believed her. She placed a hand over mine, warm and familiar. Declan's just trying to get back on his feet. He didn't want to bother you, so we handled it quietly. Quietly. The word hung between us. I nodded, forcing a smile. Of course, I said. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't fraud. She laughed again, softer this time. Fraud, oh, honey, you make it sound so serious. I wanted to ask how helping family without asking became normal, how my money had become communal property. But I just kissed her cheek and said goodnight. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of my bed, the air thick with that same hum she used while washing dishes. I could still feel her hand on mine, gentle, rehearsed, heavy with expectation. I opened my laptop, fingers moving without hesitation. A new savings account took 10 minutes to set up. I transferred half my inheritance, the number blinking on the screen like a secret heartbeat. Then I changed every password, one by one, banking, utilities, investment logins, even the Wi-Fi. Each confirmation email felt like a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. When it was done, I shut the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The room felt different, not emptier, but quieter. What I'd done wasn't revenge. It was the first breath of air after too long underwater. Sunday evening arrived wrapped in the smell of rosemary and butter. Candles flickered on the dining table, their soft glow bouncing off the polished silverware. Mom had gone all-out roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the kind of meal she made when she wanted to remind us that everything was fine. We sat together as if nothing had shifted. Dad poured wine. Declan scrolled his phone between bites, and Mom asked about my week in a voice so bright it almost cracked. I cut a piece of chicken, chewed, swallowed. My heartbeat was louder than their conversation. I waited for the right breath, the smallest silence, then set my fork down. "You forgot to hang up the call last week," I said. The words landed softly, but they carried the weight of everything unsaid. Dad's knife froze mid-slice. The sound of sizzling from the kitchen faded into a stillness that felt electric. Mom blinked, confused or pretending to be. "What call?" "Honey, the one where you said living with me was awful," I said, my voice even. "The one where you told Declan you're only staying because of my money." For a second, all three of them just stared. Then Declan let out a low, humorless laugh. "Oh, come on, Ro. You're really taking that seriously." Dad coughed, setting his wine glass down. "We were joking. Sweetheart, don't twist something small into drama." Mom's smile trembled, a performance unraveling. "We love you. You know that. You've been so good to us, we were just talking nonsense. You know how families tease." I reached for my phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. The screen glowed with screenshots, bank transfers, statements, and the registry for Declan Ellis Design, LLC. The silence that followed wasn't confusion anymore. It was recognition. Dad's jaw tightened. Declan's smirk faded into something meaner. Mom opened her mouth, but no sound came out. No one reached for the phone. No one denied it. The candles burned lower, wax running in slow, uneven lines. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping softly against the tile, and stood. They could lie about jokes and intentions, but the numbers didn't lie, and neither did I. By dawn, the house was already half empty. The sound of suitcase wheels on hardwood woke me before the light did. I didn't get up. I lay still, listening to the doors open and close, to the muffled shuffle of belongings being gathered in a hurry. A car engine started, paused, then faded down the street. When the silence settled, it felt unfamiliar thick, almost solid. I went downstairs. The dining table was bare except for 3 folded napkins left behind. Mom's favorite throw blanket was gone from the couch. Dad's reading glasses had disappeared from the coffee table. Declan's charger no longer tangled in the outlet. Even the air smelled different, lighter somehow, like a room that had just been aired out after years of holding its breath. My phone buzzed as I stood in the doorway. "Sweetheart, we didn't mean it. Families share everything. You're overreacting. Let's talk." Each message came like a tap on glass, gentle, persistent, hollow. I set the phone face down on the counter and left it there. By mid-morning, I was sitting in a lawyer's office downtown. The space was quiet, lined with framed diplomas and the faint scent of coffee. Her name was Elaine Barrett, middle-aged, sharp eyes, calm voice. I told her everything from the call to the transfers. She didn't interrupt, just took notes in precise, looping handwriting. "We'll secure the deed," she said finally. "Freeze all joint accounts. File notice of unauthorized access. Just in case." I nodded, signing where she pointed. My hands didn't shake. When I came home, the afternoon light filled the hallway like a soft rinse. For the first time in months, there were no overlapping voices, no footsteps pacing between rooms, no background hum of expectation. I stood in the center of the living room, listening to the quiet. It wasn't peace yet, not exactly, but it was something closer, something that belonged to me. The walls no longer echoed with their plans or their laughter. The house, stripped of everything that wasn't real, finally sounded like mine. Months slipped by quietly, marked only by the rhythm of work and the hum of rain against the windows. The house stayed clean in ways it never had before. No clutter, no voices bleeding through the walls, no reminders of what used to fill the space. I heard about them in fragments. Mrs. Klein from next door mentioned seeing a moving truck at the end of winter. My parents had rented a small apartment across town, near the freeway. "Not much of a view," she said kindly, "but close to the grocery store." I nodded, thanked her, and changed the subject. A week later, another neighbor told me Declan's company had folded. Something about unpaid invoices and a failed investor. I listened, surprised by how little it hurt. Once, that kind of news would have sent me running to rescue, to fix, to prove I was still the dependable one. But the instinct was gone. Whatever tether had held me to their chaos had finally worn through. I didn't call. I didn't text. There was nothing left to say that could unspend the years or rewrite the truth. At work, the days found a new steadiness. I started taking lunch with a small group from the design team, people I'd always liked but never really known. One afternoon, after a long meeting, my coworker Maya looked at me across the break room table. "You seem lighter," she said. "Like you finally slept." I laughed softly, surprised by how true it felt. "Maybe that's what honesty weighs," I told her. She smiled, not pressing for more. We went back to talking about projects, but I carried that line with me for the rest of the day. Honesty had a weight, yes, but it also had an absence, the kind that makes room for breath. For the first time in a long while, I could feel air moving freely through my life again. The house sold in early spring, just as the trees along Mount Tabor began to bloom again. I signed the papers with steady hands, watched the ink dry, and didn't look back when I handed over the keys. It had stopped feeling like home long before I let it go. My new apartment sat a few blocks from the Willamette River, small, sunlit, with creaking hardwood floors and a balcony barely big enough for a chair. But every corner was mine. The furniture was mismatched, the curtains a little too long, and the air carried the faint scent of cedar from the park nearby. I liked it that way. Nothing in the space demanded perfection. Nothing demanded me. I unpacked slowly, one box at a time, letting silence settle between each task. There were no footsteps overhead, no laughter that wasn't mine. I cooked for one, ate by the window, and watched the city lights shimmer across the river. The quiet didn't feel hollow anymore. It felt earned. On the second Friday after moving in, Leah stopped by with takeout from our favorite Thai place and a cheap bottle of wine. She stepped inside, eyes widening. "This place looks like you," she said, smiling as she kicked off her shoes. We sat cross-legged on the floor, cartons spread out on the coffee table I'd bought secondhand. We talked about work, her new dog, a bad date, nothing important at all. When she laughed, it filled the room without echoing off walls too big for the sound. After she left, I washed the dishes and stood by the open window, the night breeze brushing against my skin. The city moved quietly outside, distant sirens, the low hum of traffic, a boat passing under the bridge. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing calm. I was living it. 6 months passed before I realized how completely life had rearranged itself. Mornings came quietly now, coffee in a chipped mug, the sound of rain against the balcony rail. Emails waiting but never overwhelming. My accounts were stable, every bill paid from an account that only I could open. No hidden charges, no surprises. The balance figures glowed on the screen like proof that I had rebuilt something invisible but solid. But that wasn't the real wealth. The real wealth was silence, the kind that doesn't demand to be filled. The kind that means safety. I still heard from them sometimes. A birthday message from Mom. A short email from Dad about a news article he thought I'd like. Both polite and distant. I responded once, with a few careful sentences, and then let the conversation fade naturally. Declan never wrote. I didn't expect him to. Some debts can't be repaid, and maybe that's its own kind of balance. That evening, I lit a small candle by the window. Outside, the rain fell in fine silver threads, catching the glow of the streetlights and smudging the city into a watercolor. The flame flickered, reflected faintly in the glass, a reminder that light doesn't have to be loud to be real. I thought about my grandfather, the way he used to say that people show their values not in what they give, but in what they protect. Back then, I hadn't understood. Now I did. I whispered into the quiet, almost smiling. I used to measure love by what I gave. Now I measure it by what I keep. The rain kept falling, steady and gentle, washing the night clean. I let the candle burn low, the apartment warm with a kind of peace no one could take from me again.